What's up everybody? Hope you're doing fine wherever you are in the world, and welcome back to the channel. In today's lesson we're actually going to be working with the programming language Swift 5. Swift 5 is an Apple programming language that they came up where we can create apps of iOS, also Mac computers, Mac apps. We can also create Apple Watch apps. It's a very powerful tool and programming language when working with development. So today's video we're going to learn how to create a login page without a storyboard. And if you're confused what is a storyboard and what is a full programmatic UI, which is the user interface, just go back to my very first video on YouTube, and there I made a full explanation of the differences. But I won't take up too much time in today's video. I'm just going to create a simple login page, and I will follow up on maybe like the sign up page or anything else that I may have missed on today's section. So let's go ahead and get started. As always, if you have Mac, go ahead and get your Xcode started. So Xcode is free. You just download it from the App Store, create a new Xcode project, and you're going to click iOS. So like I said, you can create Mac OS apps, watch. But again, if you're confused of what I'm doing here, just go ahead and just drop a comment, so that way I can do maybe a further slowly lecture of, detailed explanation of Xcode and everything. But let's go ahead and I'm gonna make this video referencing those who are familiar with Xcode. We're gonna say login simple. This is creating the file of your app. And we are gonna use storyboard in here, like clicking it. But once we get started, I'm gonna go ahead and delete it and just create our own user interface. And then you want to create it in your desktop. And before we start, let's create our folders, because I don't want it to get a little bit messier later on, I meant. So you click new group. New group is you're just adding folders. So we're gonna create authentication. And in that file, we're going to create a new file, which is going to be a Swift file, and we're going to call it our login controller. So this Swift file is like a login, it's like a page in your app you're creating. So we're going to call it our login controller. And then we're also going to create a sign up controller. Sign up controller. So these pages, what they are is simply like from an app where you can, let's see if okay, so this page right here in the back end of a programmer, it's called probably shortcuts page. So this right here in the bottom, it's called tab bar. So it has a little icon in the bottom, and each tab bar, you're moving through each tab bar, and that is a UI tab bar function. Later on in the video, I did create in my previous video I did create a tab bar icon, so it refers to that. So one of the things that I like about when I learn iOS apps is you'll be surprised, most apps have the same quality. I mean, it's written in the same software, so you expect for it to have the same, not quality, but the same reference to what you're creating in your code. So your login controller could mean one page of an app, or however you want it to be called. And these are just the stuff that you make inside your page, which is what you create in this file. And you could do it in many ways. Like I said, this is the main storyboard. So right here, this little arrow is pointing that this page is called the view controller, which is this one. It's going to be connected to my root view controller, which is this little arrow. But I'm going to show you through code how to create this process through just code, not using the storyboard. Storyboard is nice and all, but you have to connect the stuff back to the scenes that you're connecting it to. So let's say if I'm connecting it to my view, I have to connect that label to here, and then start writing my code. and I feel like that's a hassle when you're creating a heavy app, because you want to create your own components, as a programmer. Show a little bit of what you can do, with your code, and then also just makes it a little bit fun, not dealing with a lot of constraints. But then again, we'll get this in a more depth video. Let's go ahead and delete this because we're not going to use the main storyboard. And let's go ahead also in the beginning, create your main, delete it. Where you create your main, you delete it. And then you're going to go also to the info plist, command F to find, and you're going to click main. And you're going to delete it also. So now we're going to go to our scene delegate. So a scene delegate is where you go behind the scene. So we have to create this window like what the storyboard had in the root view controller. We have to create in here. So we're going to say guard lit window. My apologies, my keyboard here. But we're going to say guard lit window scene. Alright guys, let's finish creating our scene. So in order to make it, since we're not using the storyboard, excuse me, we have to make sure that we create this window scene. So in order to do that, you're going to see this actually empty. So I want you to go ahead and put scene on there. And then let's go ahead and start creating our scene. So I'm going to put comments, creating my window. And then we're going to call it a window. Is going to equal the user interface window. So right here it tells you, hey, this is going to be the backdrop for your app's user interface and the object that dispatches the events to your views. So this is how we create that window scene. And then we're going to create window scene, and inside we're going to put scene. And then we're going to create a navigation, which is you can actually call it anything you want. So if you wanted to just call it nav and refer it as navigation, you can also do that. But since this is a beginner's course for y'all, I'm just gonna go ahead and write it down like long. So let the navigation equal the UI navigation controller, because remember, the reason why I'm creating a navigation is because whenever I have my login and my sign up page, I'm going through different windows, so I want to create a navigation. You can also create a tab bar. So in my previous video I have created a tab bar, but in this preview we're just going to create a navigation. So then you want to open the bracket, and inside you're going to create your root view controller. So remember when I showed you that little arrow, that was the root view controller. But since we're doing this programmatically in you're building your own components, you're going to call it as a root view controller, and then you're going to call in that controller that you're calling in. So which is my login. Well, for this example we're going to call the sign up page. But later on you can create like a home page, and then in that home page is going to be your main tab bar, which goes to all the controllers. But that's in a bigger, longer version video. But this is just simple. We're going to just call our sign up controller. Then you want to make sure you close it. So it's going to be 3 brackets instead. And then we have to, in order to make it all happen, now we have to create the window optional, because it's gonna connect to our review controller, which is our navigation. Hold on. Equals our navigation, which is what we call it on here. So you want this window to be optional as your review controller and as a navigation. And inside that navigation is going to be our sign up controller. And then we're gonna say window optional again dot make key invisible. So this shows the window and makes it in the key window. So this actually makes it all work and make it visible. So now let's see if it works. And this was before the code, so I'm gonna delete this because I'm gonna teach you that in a little bit. But right now we're just gonna go with what I created here was a function. So functions are one thing I like about programming is that it's open source. So Swift has an open source document where in here you can search up anything that you're looking for. Maybe you're looking for source code, how to work the Swift compiler. Anything about Swift, you can find it on here. So if I was to say, hey, what is the function? So let's go back to what is the function. It gives you an example of structs, classes, so please be very open to this and use it as much as you can when you're confused. So that's one thing about programming. You know, aside from just watching videos, you also have to go sometimes open the source, look at the book. Hey, what is it referencing? Oh, so that's how it is. So now we go back, and in this helpers I'm going to create a function that configures my user interface, because I don't want to write in here. You can write in here your background color. So let's say I want it to be red. I'm going to show you an example before it actually prefers. I'm going to put user interface. Usually I would do this, font configure UI user interface, but since y'all are new, I'm just, you know, writing everything out user interface. But you would write font configure UI and then bracket. But let's show you how it works without a function. See, you get red and you have your navigation right here on the top. And notice this thing is black, so keep that in mind, because later I'm going to change it to this to be right here on top how it is white. So we can do that by now inside this configure UI. I'm going to go ahead and put that on here. Not super viewable. So view dot background color. Let's change the color so you can see that I changed it. And we're gonna call our function. So now all we have to do is call configure that function, and you see how it's cleaner. It doesn't have this in here. So let's say if I was to add more functions or something, you don't want to have this one line on there. So in here, what's gonna be my user interface? Oh, a background color. So I put it on here. So that's a big advantage of functions in Swift. So now that we created that background color, we're gonna go ahead and make it a gradient color. So how do you make a gradient color, right? Gradient colors are just when you make, I'm gonna give you an example. Oh, there's not an example no more. But gradient colors is when you add two colors and you make them into a little bit of a gradient color. And we're gonna create a function called that configures that gradient. So I'm gonna say func. Zooming it in more so you can see. So we're gonna say func configure user. Oh, I already did that one. My bad. And then we're going to close it in there. And what we're doing on there is a layer, so let's not forget that. And we're going to create a gradient, so let gradient equal that CA. So what is a CA gradient? So it's just a layer that draws a color over another background color, filling that shape of the layer. So in the corner on the very top or in the bottom, but you can later localize it with, you want it to be at 0 on the top, 1 in the bottom, like it depends. So we're going to use that property. We're going to close it. Then we're going to put gradient dot colors, because we're using the colors. And inside those colors, I'm going to use the brackets, which is an array of two user interface colors. So in Swift and in Apple, when you're creating colors, they're called UI colors. So user colors. So see, it's an object that stores the color data and sometimes opacity. So we're going to use that color to call in blue, because I like blue. So let's go ahead and put blue, and then CG color, comma. Then we're gonna put another color in there, because you know the point of gradient colors is combining two. And I'm gonna try yellow. Let's try yellow. System yellow is when a user actually has dark mode and white mode on. So this is a very important, also I forgot to mention, whenever you're creating an app, you want to make sure that it adapts to every user. So let's say some users may have white mode, right? Some other users may have dark mode. So Swift made a variable called system yellow, so it will actually automatically, every time the user switches to dark mode, that color will work with the dark mode. If it's in white mode, that color will also work with white mode. So that's very important. You use system. So if I was to use just blue and the user goes dark mode, it would probably look a little bit off. So make sure that you use system yellow. Let's try green for now. And let's also put system. Now let's see how it runs. Well, actually I have to put a location where I want it to focus on. So I wanted to, you're gonna put locations equal to an array of 0 and 1, so the bottom and the top. And then we're gonna add a layer on top that's gonna be the view to make it visible. And we're gonna add another sub layer, which is the gradient color that we created here. And then now we're gonna create it on that frame. So we're gonna say gradient dot frame equals view dot frame. And then now we can call it in this function that graduation gradient, not graduation. And then let's see if it worked. See if our color worked. So see, we added the red and black. Actually, that doesn't look good. Oh, because I have the background still red. So now let's see if it looks a little bit different. Blue and yellow. Wow. Blue and green. I guess this is what blue and green makes. A little bit dark color. Let's try yellow. I've been trying to try yellow. There must be something I'm doing wrong here. Maybe not system. Oh, I know why. Because I didn't add the CG colors that makes it into another object. That adds, it's supposed to add like that little bit of a gradient color. There you go. Now it makes it a little bit lighter. And now what we're gonna work on is making this, hiding this navigation bar. So how do you do that? So you can go on here on your configure user interface, and it's only gonna take 2 lines. You're gonna say navigation controller dot, I want my navigation bar, because you're going into your navigation bar. And you're gonna say dot is hidden because you want it to be hiding, and you want it to be true because it's true, it's gonna be hiding. And then you're gonna say, hey, in my navigation controller, I also want the navigation bar in the very top. So this thing, you want it to be white because, you know, as you were seeing, they were black. So you want to say dot bar style, and then you say dot black, and then let's see if it works. And you were able to hide the navigation now, and also add that this white up here, the tab bar. So we can also change the color. Let's keep playing a little bit more with it. So let's say system teal with, let's take a guess. Let's go with purple. Okay, it's kind of cool. So you feel free to play around with it, but this is how you create a gradient color. You let the gradient be a CA gradient. And so you don't know what a CA gradient layer is, go ahead, go to your Swift book and search up you go to swift.org, source code. Well, usually I will search it up and it links me to it because they don't have a oh, see, also in Apple documentation they have it on there what it means. That's why it wasn't showing up on Swift, because it's showing up on Apple documentation. So here it is. So if you ever want to play around with more colors, this is open. So if you go to Apple Developer, it tells you more about the code and how you can add different colors. Maybe you're adding the green, the yellow, the blue, and in the location. So how I was saying, location is an optional array where I'm putting, hey, I want it to be in the top or in the bottom. And then it tells you more like about if you want to add shapes to you want to add gradients to your shapes, you can also do that. So this is a very important. Swift and Apple documentation are open source, so you can go on there if you have any trouble with your widgets, you want to have app clips, you need help on anything, this is the website to go. And also when you publish your apps, you're also going to need an Apple developer account to manage your apps on there. It is